What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Powered by Primus. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys Unmatched, which is going to be a new game that we are going to be playing quite a bit on the channel here. It is a new miniatures slash board game slash card game, which is a lot of fun, which puts legends against legends in this battle game. Now, I'm going to be showing you guys two characters in this video. One of them is going to be Medusa, which looks really cool. All these characters do come unpainted in how they look. Basically from the box. However, if you are a fancy painter, then you can obviously paint all these characters. We are going to try to get our characters painted because it's going to be a lot of fun. And there are a lot of characters that do come with this game current, and there are more on the way. Now, current characters that they do have in the game is going to be Medusa, Alice in Wonderland, Bigfoot, Little Red Riding Hood, Beowulf, Robin Hood, the Raptors from Jurassic Park, Sherlock Holmes, Jekyll and Hyde, the Invisible Man, Dracula, Sinbad, King Arthur, and again, more to come. Bruce Lee, I didn't miss Bruce Lee off that list. So there is a lot of characters that you can play with that all do have unique abilities and a unique deck that does come with those characters as well. So you can really find your playstyle you like, or if there's just a legend that you want to play with that just is, your favorite for whatever reason, then you can continue to play that character. Now, again, talking about these characters, first off, what we're going to do is talk about all the different cards in a deck and the character in general, and then we will get to the board, combat, and all of that fantastic stuff here in just a moment. Now, talking about Medusa as our character that we're going to be showing you the majority of stuff with in this video, she is a ranged character, which we will talk about when it comes to talking about the board and combat, and then she does have 16 health, and she can move 3 spaces. Now, every single hero in this game, legend in this game, does have a move sequence, which is how many spaces that they can move, and if they do have sidekicks, again, which we'll talk about here in just a second, can move as well. So when it does come to moving Medusa on the board, you can move up to 3 spaces. And again, we will talk about all the rest of the stuff on how movement works later on. She does come with a special ability that says at the start of your turn, you may deal 1 damage to an opposing fighter in Medusa's zone. Again, we will talk about that here in just a moment. And then she does come with the sidekick, which are harpies. Sidekicks in this game are going to be represented with little circles that do have character art on them. A lot of characters do come with sidekicks, some don't come with sidekicks, so it really just depends on what your hero does come with. Now, these sidekicks also do say that they have a start health, which does not have a representation. I'll show you guys here in just a second, and those characters are melee. Now, every hero in this game or legend in this game does come with a fancy little health counter that does show you where their max health is, and then obviously once they reach 0, then they do go down. However, if you have a sidekick that does not come with a health vial, which like the Jabberwocky does come with their own, it is because they have a specialized health as well. However, if a character does not have one of these, then the character does only come with 1 health, meaning as soon as they take 1 damage, they are removed from the board and are killed. Now, there are 4 different types of cards that are going to come inside of your battle deck. Now, again, every one of these cards and these decks do come pre-built. They do have their own unique back on them and does say Medusa slash Harpy, so you know that you can't mix up any of the cards if you do want to keep them together. And I put them in clear sleeves just because that way they're protected and you can still see which character they do belong to. Now, the first icon we're going to see up here is going to be an attack icon followed with a number. Now, again, this is the attack icon, so this card can only be used when it comes to going into battle with an opponent's character. The next thing that all cards are going to have in this slot when it comes to attack and defense is going to be a number which represents how much damage and or defense that card is going to come with. The next thing below that card is going to come is with a banner, which does suggest which character must play the card. That means in order for me to use this attack card, I have to also be attacking with Medusa. I cannot choose to attack with one of her harpies and use this card as it only does register for Medusa. The next thing we're going to find on the card is going to be what is considered a boost number. Now, currently, every card that you are going to have that does have a boost option does have a number in that little circle, which represents a number you can use for various things in the game. Comes to movement, combat, depends again if your character has a special ability. Like King Arthur allows you to use these cards to boost his attack. And then again, I will show you guys during the board phase and zones and all that how to specifically move and use these cards for your boost when it comes to movement. And then finally, the bottom of every card does come with a specific ability that does register at certain times during, whether it's after combat, immediately, during combat, and all of those good things. This one does say second shot during combat. So as we are going through our combat phase, I may boost this card's attack. Again, if I wanted to use this card, I can't sacrifice it for its boost cost and use the card itself. However, if I have a different card in my hand that I want to use, I can also choose to boost it by going ahead and getting rid of another card and using that boost total, which would then get added to my 3, making my attack total 5. We will talk about all this again when it comes down to our combat situations later on in the video. The next card we're going to be showing off is a defensive card. It's going to be blue. It does have a shield. These cards can only be used on defense. Now, the one thing about combat, which we'll talk about later on as well, is that you are not required to play a defensive card when it comes to a defending player. Only an attacker does have to play an attack card. Now, this card, again, can only be used when defending with Medusa, as the card does state only Medusa. And we'll talk about here in just a second, but there are going to be cards that are for the Harpies, so don't worry about getting into combat with those. Now, this card's defense is 4. Again, when it comes down to defense, it means it's going to represent 4 for defense. It does have a boost of 3, and then the name of the card is Hiss and Slither. After combat, your opponent discards 1 card, so they'll chuck 1 card from their hand and throw it into their discard pile. Again, we will talk about later on in the video. The next card coming in is going to be a scheme card. Now, there are certain mechanics in the game that we do have to do. They're called actions. We'll talk about them here in just a moment. And so this card is going to be played during that step or that phase, which is a scheme card. Now, you guys can see on this one, it is represented with a yellow, orangish lightning bolt, and then does say any, which means I can target any character when I want to use this card. So if I want to use it on Medusa, or if I want to use it on one of her Harpies, again, it can be used for any target. It does have a boost of 2, and then does say Winged Frenzy. Move each of your fighters up to 3 spaces. You may move them through spaces containing opposing fighters, then return a defeated Harpy, if any, to a space in Medusa's zone. Again, a little confusing with how the zones work, and we'll talk about movement here in just a second, but essentially if you don't, if you have a killed, knocked out, destroyed Harpy, you can then return that Harpy back from the grave, essentially, and then you get another new character. Now, if you do have all 3 of them, then obviously you won't worry about getting one of them back, since you don't have one that has been defeated. But if you are missing one, then boom, you get to bring another one back, which is really, really awesome. And then finally, talking about the 4th card that you are going to find, and this is a variable card. So this is an attack or a defense card. Represented in purple, does have half of the attack icon and half of the defense icon, and then again does have a number. So if going into combat, represents 3. If defending, also represents 3. And again, does have a banner. This one is specifically for the Harpy. Does have a boost of 2, and then does say the Clutching Claws. So after combat, your opponent discards 1 card. You guys can already tell that there are a few cards in here that really want to try to take more advantage of your hand, taking away your opponent's cards. Now, getting into a little bit here when it comes to talking about Alice, I'm just going to show off another hero just to show you guys how important each different hero does look, acts, all of the things that are associated with those characters. Alice is going to be coming in here. She is a melee character. She does start with 13 health, and then she does have a movement of 2. This also does count for the Jabberwock. You guys can see the arrow does say both characters. And then we do have the Jabberwock, who does come in here with 8 health and is also a melee character. Now, she has a special ability with Alice that does say when you place your Alice, which we'll talk about here in a second, you get to choose whether she wants to start the game big and or small. Now, this is a very unique thing for just her. If you are small and you choose to be small, you do have +1 defense at all times when it comes to defending. However, if you choose to go and start big, then you do get +2 attack to all of your combats when it comes to attacking, which is really fun. However, don't be too worried about choosing in the beginning, as there are many cards that do allow you to change sizes as well, so you're not locked into a specific type when it comes to the rest of the game. One of those cards for Alice is going to be a 4 attack card, a boost of 4 card, and it says, "Oh, frabjous day. After combat, you may change size." Now, as you guys can read, it does say change size. It does not say you may change size. So if you are big, then you will immediately go into small and vice versa. Now, these kind of cards are also very awesome when you look at how they are designed and played. If we're going to be in attack mode, we're going to be getting in here for the base 4 plus this 2. So we're hitting for a base of 6, which is really, really awesome. Now, we'll talk about combat here in a moment on how your opponent can immediately attack you back. So when you are able to change size, after the fact, you get to kind of go into defensive mode here, and then you get to pick up +1 defense. So if your opponent does choose to attack you on their turn, you are going to have that inherent +1 defense, which is really cool as well. So make sure you are taking advantage and really kind of seeing what's going to happen when it comes to your opponent's turn as well. Now, when it comes to talking about the board, we do have quite a bit of battlefields that do come with this game, which is really, really awesome. If you guys do buy the 4-pack, which does come with 4 different characters, then you are also going to get one of these big battle maps that does have the ability for 4 players to play in one map. We'll talk about teams later on, and then it does also have an additional side on the other side. Now, if you do pick up any of the other smaller boxes that do come with characters, they also come with their own battlefields, and they again are reversible, so there are lots of things that you can do with lots of different battlefields. Now, the only thing that really matters is if you are playing with 2 players, you can play with any battlefield. However, if you are playing with 4 players, you do have to play with one of the bigger battle maps because they do have different indications for what players go into what slots. Now, talking about this, all you're going to do is figure out who gets to go first in the game, and then that player gets to place their hero on the number 1 spot. So if I was to win the roll, I would go ahead and say that I'm going to go first, which means I have to put Medusa in the number 1 slot. Now, when it comes to placing your sidekicks, you may place them on any other circle that does share a zone. So let's talk about zones real quick. Zones are going to be all these different colored circles that you guys do see on the map. So this zone would be grass, essentially. There are no names for the zones. They only go based on colors. So if I wanted to say that anything that happened in this zone has to happen underneath one of these green circles. The same thing goes for the blue ones. These are going to count as this zone. Purple is going to count for all the purples, and then sand, and then I'm guessing wood for all of these other ones, again, identified by the colors. Now, you guys are going to see that there are some here that are split in half, and even some that are split into 3s. These are going to represent multiple zones. So if I do have Medusa sitting in this zone, which is sand, and I do have Alice sitting in this zone, with my ranged ability, I am technically able to attack her, which we'll talk about here in just a second. And because we do share a zone, there is sand there, and then there is sand here. Same thing with the purple and the purple. However, if she was standing over here, I would not be able to do anything as our zones do not match. So again, talking about zones and doing setup, I would set Medusa here, and I could place any of her harpies in any of these circles as long as they share a zone. If again, you were starting in another zone for Alice, she could put her Jabberwock on any circle that does have a little bit of purple in it and has quite a bit of more range. So maybe you want to try to go second, so you can set up your board a little bit better. If you want to try to put your characters in very specific spots, it is a really cool thing to be able to place them in any of those zones. So again, if you want to place a Jabberwock way over here, or even if you wanted to place it way over here, you totally could, as long as it shares a zone. Now, when it comes to talking about moving characters, as we did see, Medusa and Alice both have, Medusa has a movement of 3, Alice has a movement of 2. That means that all of my characters as Medusa can move up to 3 circles and 3 spaces, and Alice's characters can only move 2. Now, in order for you to make a move, you guys will notice all these black lines that are in between these spaces. Those are the path that you can take when it comes to jumping into a thing. However, if I was sitting here, I could not jump to this space over here, as there is no direct black line that is going to come across it. I am going to have to try to travel around and follow all of those black lines to be able to do any type of movement. So if I did want to move Medusa 3 spaces, we can easily move her up to 3 spaces as well, and we can move something like that. And I continue to move all of my characters into those 3 spaces. And again, it is up to 3 spaces. You can choose 0 as a movement and also 1 or 2. So even if you wanted to just move Medusa 1 space, you totally could. Now, when it comes to talking about combat and how you can get into combat, with a ranged character, you can shoot any character that also does share a zone. So we did talk about that a little bit. So if we wanted to be here, we could easily attack because we do share a purple with Alice, and that is only with ranged characters. You can also still get into combat like normal by being adjacent to the character as well. Now, this is how melee fighters are going to do all of their damage, that they have to be within 1 circle, 1 space of the enemy in order for them to attack, and there does have to be a black line to attach into them. So even if I was here with Medusa, Alice would not be able to attack because there is not a black line associated between the two of us. However, if I was here, then we could go into combat. And then finally, when it comes to talking about movement with the characters, you can only move through your own characters. You cannot move through an enemy. So a really good example of that is if I was here with Alice and I wanted to move to this space, I cannot move to that space because Medusa is physically blocking that space. I have to kill Medusa, or Medusa has to leave in order for Alice to be able to make her way across the board. It's a really cool thing for you to be able to know that when it comes to a lot of these battle maps. There are ways for you to block characters in and even potentially lock someone into where they cannot move. I do have a game specifically I'm going to be showing you guys here soon where there is a really cool scenario where that definitely happens, and it makes a huge difference when a player cannot move and or run from combats. And again, talking about if you wanted to move through your character, if we did have the Jabberwock here and I wanted to move Alice the 2 spaces, I could totally move through my own character because it is my own. Same thing would exist if there was a Harpy in the way. Alice would not be able to get through because there is a Harpy in the way. We'd have to fight and remove that Harpy before I can move through the character. Now, after you get ready and set up in your board on how you guys are both going to be playing, both players then are going to set their health totals to full amounts, and they're going to put their hero card somewhere next to them on the table. As there's something else I'm going to show you guys with that card specifically, you guys are going to shuffle your decks, and then you're going to draw 5 cards from the top of your deck. This is going to represent your hand. Now, you can only go up to 7 cards at max in your hand. At the end of the turn, you do have to discard down to 7 cards. Now, the one thing that does work about your discard pile in this game is that once you start discarding cards and you get to the bottom of your deck, then you are officially out of cards. And at the start of any time you would have to draw a card, all of your characters or fighters would have to take 2 damage. So if essentially I had all of my cards in the discard pile, I had to draw, and I didn't have any cards to draw, then all of my characters would take 2. That would kill all of my Harpies, and then I would take 2 damage going down to 14. This does happen with each character, or both players do have to follow by this. You do not shuffle your discard pile back into your deck. So once you are out of cards, and then you are just completely out of cards. The last thing to know about that when it comes to these cards is if you guys look on the bottom, there is a number with a ×3. This indicates that there are 3 types of that card in my deck, so it is for me something for me to know, or for my opponent to even know how many of those can potentially be around. There are some cards that are 2-ofs, and then there are even some cards that are 1-ofs that I've seen, and even 4-ofs in some characters. Looks like Medusa does not have any 1-ofs. She does have a couple of 2-ofs. I know King Arthur does have a 1-of. Sinbad has a few 1-ofs. And again, once you see that card get played either by your opponent, you know that that card is gone unless they have a way to retrieve it. And or if you know that it's still around, that they have the potential for at least one of those in their deck. And the last thing to know about when it comes to this game is officially how you have to take your turn. When it comes to a player, you have to take 2 actions in a single turn. And you can choose to do any of these actions or you can choose to do the same action twice. It may sound a little confusing. However, when it comes to looking at your hand is how you get to determine how you want to take your turn. So when it comes to talking about with Medusa here, I can choose to do a scheme and I can play this card. I can choose to attack if I have anyone within range, and or I can choose to maneuver my characters, which makes me draw a card, and then I may move my fighters any 1 spaces that they're allowed to move. Again, Medusa can move 3 spaces. And what we're going to do is we're going to choose to do the maneuver phase here. I want to show you guys kind of how this works a little bit. So I'm going to choose to do a maneuver. What happens is once I play that action, I go ahead and I draw a card from the top of my deck, goes into my hand, and then now I can move any of my fighters. I can also choose to play a boost card, which we're going to do in this scenario, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this card as my boost. Again, that card's going to add 3 to my movement, which means that all of my characters can move up to 6 spaces this turn. This is a really good thing for you to be able to help catch your opponent who's trying to run, or even if you are trying to run away from an opponent, you can use these boost cards to try to get away more spaces. Nothing is scarier than being in battle with a character and you guys both have a movement of 2. You're trying to run, well, every single turn they can catch you. So you really want to try to use some of these boost cards to either get into combat from farther spaces or even potentially run farther spaces when it does come to these battles. So I'm going to use that boost card, which does immediately go into my discard pile, and now I can move up to 6 spaces. I'm going to choose to kind of just move all around here 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's going to put us over here. And then I'm going to go to like 1, 2, and then let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. This kind of sets up a little bit with the board. I'm going to maybe try to like block out from this side of the map. Can do a lot of really cool things as far as that stuff goes, and that is going to be my movement phase, or that is going to be my maneuver phase. Now again, I can choose to do that either same action again, which would allow me to again move a card and allow me to move again. However, if I do want to use another boost card, I have to use another boost card here. The same boost card is only for that first action. It does not carry through. So I can't get rid of another one, move 9 spaces. I have to get rid of another one to then move those additional spaces. If not, I go back to my original moving, which is 3. Or if I want to choose to go into combat, which is what I'm going to do here, I'm going to have my Medusa attack Alice, and we're going to show how that combat scenario goes down. Okay, so I have decided as Medusa to attack Alice. When you do go to enter combat, you do have to initiate which character you are attacking with and which character you are attacking. You can't just say I'm choosing an attack because your opponent has to know which characters are being attacked so they can play defensive cards as well if they choose. Now again, when it comes to talking about attacking, if you are the attacking player, you are required to play an attacking card. Now again, this can be represented with the the red cards, and or it can be represented with the either or, as long as you are matching your banner with the character attacking. With me attacking with Medusa here, I clearly can't play this Harpy card. I do have to be attacking or defending with a Harpy. So I'm going to choose to play this other card. Now, as the attacking player and the defensive player, you will put your cards face down in front of you until both players have finished playing the cards that they would like to do for their attack and or defense. So Alice is going to play her card face down. I'm going to play my card face down. Now again, as the attacker, you are required to play a card. However, if the defender chooses not to defend for the turn, they totally can. You flip over your card for attack and you play combat just like normal. However, Alice did play a defensive card, and when we are both ready, we flip over our cards at the same time. The first thing that we are going to do is to look to see if there are any cards that have an immediate trigger. Those kind of cards are literally going to say on the bottom of them immediately, which like this one says cancel all effects on your opponent's card. Now if you were to play something like that, which we'll talk about here in a second, it does have some effects that it can do, but if there are no immediate effects, which will trigger first, if not, then you go into during combat triggers. Now I do have a during combat trigger, my opponent does not, so this says that I may boost my attack. Now I do have this card here that I'm going to get rid of that does have a boost of 3, which means that now I have that boost of 3 plus my normal of 3 means I am attacking for 6 damage. Now let's see if there are any during combats for the opponent. They do not have any during combats, and we are going to do our math. I do have the 3 from the boost and the 3 from the attack, meaning my total is 6. Going into Alice's defensive 2, meaning that Alice is going to be taking 4 damage. So you're going to have Alice drop down her 4 damage, which is going to take her down to 9. And then you're going to look to see if any cards have an after effect, which it looks like the Alice card does. It says after combat, I may move Alice up to 5 spaces and then change size. So after this combat, my opponent can choose to move away from me if it was too brutal, if they want to try to make a run for it after the combat from taking too much damage, and then does change their little size token. So if they were on big, now they would flop over to the defense side. And again, if they were in the small side before combat, that would also count as well. So my 6 would have went into the 3, only taking 3 damage instead. But we'll just use that it was in a big before, and then now does go to a small. After that combat is over, all cards are sent to the discard pile. And again, if I'm done now with my first maneuver and my attack, then my turn as Medusa is over, and I pass turn over to Alice, who then gets to take their turn. Now I'm going to do one more type of defense scenario because there is going to be specific combat things that can happen as far as winning and losing a battle. So again, going into the same thing here, I am going to be attacking Alice with my Medusa. We both played our cards face down. We are both ready to enter combat, and we flip our cards over going into combat. Now the first thing that's going to happen is I'm going to, again, look to see if there are any immediate effects. Now there is an immediate effect on this card, and then it does say cancel all effects on my opponent's card, meaning that the bottom half of my card does no longer exist. I only get the V2 attack. Now with this, I'm going to be going into attacking for 2, and Alice is going to be defending for 2, which means that 0 damage is going to be dealt. Whenever a defender is taking 0 damage, a defender automatically wins the combat. Now there will be cards, which I'll show you on this one, that do specify if you do win the combat or not, making a difference. Now Alice won the combat. We look to see if there are any effects that happen. There are not. And then if I were to have won the combat, so again, swapping this card to a different card, or let's say Alice didn't defend at all, I would do the 2 damage to the Alice based on the damage, again, if they were at their full health, go down to 11, and then it says after combat, if I won the combat, meaning that Alice would have had to have taken damage. Again, if Alice would take 0, they win, the defender wins the combat. If the attacker does at least 1 point of damage, then the attacker does win the combat. It says after combat, if you won, you get to deal 8 damage to the opposing fighter. So now I would deal an additional 8 damage to this Alice, taking her down to 3, dealing a total of 10 during 1 combat. So a really, really powerful effect. However, it doesn't come with a big attack damage, so you'd have to choose to use these at a very specific time when it does come into combats. When it comes down to a lot of the cards' effects, you just have to honestly read them. There are going to be very, very explicit about what they do, how they work, all of that good stuff. And then again, the one thing that I can't stress enough for you when it does come to this game is this specific actions. You can take any of the actions in any order that you want, and up to 2 of the same action if you want as well. So even if we were this close and I decided that as an Alice player I wanted to attack Medusa, we would go into a regular attack phase. And then I can choose to attack again with Alice if I want. I'm really beating up that Medusa. I'm taking advantage of some of those cards in my hand. I can have the double attacks. Again, you do have to choose if you want to attack with which character. So even if I want to attack with Jabberwock once and with Alice once, that does still take 2 actions. Or even if I wanted to get into combat with Medusa, I hit Medusa for a couple points and now I want to maneuver away, I would draw a card and then take my movements and go a different direction. So again, you can really do them in any order and however you feel like it, which is really exciting. Now we're going to talk about how to win the game, and honestly, it's when the opposing hero is dropped down to 0 health. They automatically lose, the game is over. Even if the sidekick still remains, once the main hero goes down, the game is supposed to end. Now here at our place, we're going to be using a house rule that even if your main hero goes down, we are going to continue to play until the sidekick goes down as well. It's just something that we're going to do to make our games last a little bit longer, be a little more fun, especially if there's a close match and it comes down to 1 health and that sidekick has the ability to finish it. We definitely want to try to see if we can finish those games. But again, the official rules is that once the main hero goes down, then that player does lose the game. So now talking about if we wanted to play with 4 players, what happens is you do 2 teams of 2. And what you're going to do is figure out who your 2 team members are, and then you are going to go opposites, 1 each for setting up your locations. Now you guys are going to see that there are 4 different sections on this board, in which case you need to be placing heroes. Let's say the player across from me on my left is playing King Arthur and they choose to go first. They get to set up their hero and they get to put their sidekick, which is Merlin, on any of their zones. They're going to go there. Now it would come to my team, myself, let's say, who's playing Medusa. I would put myself on 2, and then I would also place all of my sidekicks in the places that I want to have them. It would then go to my opponent again on the left side, who would then place their character on the 3 slot, which is right here. And then they would place their hero or their sidekick on any of their spaces. And then finally, my teammate who's playing 4, who would go and put theirs on any of the zones that they do wish as well. Now, your ally is considered a friendly hero. You are allowed to move through that player because they are your friendly hero. They cannot block spaces, so don't worry about that as far as your ally goes. You also aren't going to be targeting them with any effects. However, unless you have a card that does target a friendly ally, then you can choose to use them. You're not able to play cards in battle for them. Every player is going to act as their own player when it does come to combat, schemes, maneuvers, and all those things. And finally, with the last rule when it comes to playing with 4 players is that if, let's say, my Alice teammate does go down, Alice does get taken out, they actually would continue to play the game with their sidekick as long as they can. And then once their sidekick is down, then that player is eliminated and removed from the game. Their cards are removed and we continue play. And actually now, finally, when it comes to talking about the last part of the sequencing with 4 players, is you will also take your turns the same way. So again, the King Arthur player would get to take their turn, I would get to take my turn with Medusa, and then the Sidman player would get to go, and then the Alice player would get to go. You don't get to take your team turns at the same time. It is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 to make things very fair. And then obviously the last hero standing is the winning team. I really hope that you guys did enjoy this breakdown of how to play this game. I hope you guys are really excited for this game as we have lots of gameplay coming with it and a lot of really fun and epic matches with a lot of these awesome legends. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, obviously a like would be greatly appreciated. Make sure you guys are subscribed so you guys can get access to all of these videos as they are coming out here very soon, and I will see you guys in the next one.